Bombshell, Dems / Teamsters order Puerto Ricans stand down to embarrass Trump. Only 20% of truck drivers showing up as essential aid backed up for miles. InfoWars, Democrats and Puerto Rican Teamsters have orchestrated a stand down of essential supply distribution throughout Puerto Rico in an effort to make President Trump appear ineffective at responding to the humanitarian crisis. The Puerto Rico Teamsters Union, called Frente Amplio, a group of private contractors working for the federal government, are refusing to distribute key supplies throughout Puerto Rico because they're seeking revenge over policies they view as hurtful to their industry set by the Puerto Rican governor. Unreal. Huffington Post, U.S. military on Puerto Rico. The problem is distribution, and here's why. It's picture perfect devastation. The hurricane came through the middle of the island. 100% of the island is without power. As Puerto Rico is in trouble, to me, to hear this misinformation about the crux of the issue. But Democrats in the U.S. are keen to blame Trump for the distribution debacle, saying he's not doing enough to help the people there. This idiot, Keith Olbermann, his daily Twitter meltdowns confirm it. Racist Trump is deliberately killing Puerto Rico and Puerto Ricans. Look at this, what they're spewing. This Micah Brzezinski, hard to believe, but this could be worse than Charlottesville. Trump's racism is costing lives. How much are they paying you, you creeps of all creeps? Brian Fallon, Trump's racist neglect of Puerto Rico is threatening lives. It is time to start caring about the crisis there. It's just not true. Senator Colonel Michael Valle, commander of the federal relief effort in Puerto Rico, as a Puerto Rican, I can tell you that the problem has nothing to do with the U.S. military, FEMA, or the DOD. The aid is getting to Puerto Rico. The problem is distribution. The federal government has sent us a lot of help moving those supplies. In particular, fuel is the issue right now. Valet says that they have the water, food, generators, medicine, and fuel, but they're not being moved across the country as quickly as needed, and there's ships full of supplies that still need to unload at the ports, which remain full. It's the lack of drivers for the transport trucks, the 18-wheelers, Valet said. Supplies we have, trucks we have. However, only 20% of the drivers show up to work. As a Puerto Rican, what happens here for the people is personal to me, Valet said. To say that we are not provided all the help and resources needed is just not true. Distribution is the key, and we are working day and night on it. Democrats have not only seized the opportunity to blame Trump, but appear to have been preparing for it as well, evidenced by last night's polished Saturday Night Live sketches hammering Trump on Puerto Rico from beginning to end. This suggests that the stand down was orchestrated by anti-Trump forces using disgruntled Puerto Rican truck drivers as tools of obstruction to hinder Trump's efforts to deliver aid and supplies to these storm-ravaged countries. Isn't this sickening? So they're willing to leave the people suffer just so they can do this political hack job on Trump.
That people desperately need. They say that they're feeding their grandchildren crackers. They have no running water. They can't get to fuel. And now look at this. There are 3,000 cargo containers here at Crowley, one of the biggest shippers in Puerto Rico. These are all refrigerated units. They're known as reefers. And each one of them operates on a generator Crowley is now using 4,000 gallons of fuel every single day to keep the operations here at its terminal up and running. But here's the problem. The truck drivers can't get to the terminal to get their containers out. Each one of these has medicine and food, construction supplies, building equipment, and all of that needs to get to Puerto Rico. At this point, though, when you're looking at truck drivers who can't be reached by their businesses by cell phone, they don't have the gas to get to work, and then even when they do get to work, their semi-trucks don't have fuel. The problem is the supply chain. Here's what the executive for Crowley told me about the problem.
The people of Puerto Rico are fighting hard, but there's no way we're going to be able to do this by ourselves. We need much more support from the federal agencies right now. We also ask the distributors and the trucking company that in a way that it is possible to please come and start moving the cargo here, because we need to make room in order to receive the cargo that is on its way.
I just wanted to give you an example of the grocery stores. 226 supermarkets around the island are ready to open, but they don't have diesel for their generators. At Crowley Terminal alone, there's the Supermercado Econo. It's one of the biggest supermarket chains on the island. It has 104 containers sitting here. V. Suarez, a big food distributor, has 114 containers. Walmart has 70 containers. They're all stuck. And when you're talking about lifting that Jones Act, the executives are saying, how is that going to help? It's not that we don't have the supplies. We have the fuel on the island that we need. We have the supplies. We don't have the distribution channels to get them from the terminal offsite. And oh, by the way, they're running out of room. Look around. There's no more room left to put containers here. It's all full. So the problem is, how do you get the supply chain back up and running? Diesel fuel seems to be one of the big missing links here, guys.
Yeah, Contessa, I mean, if you're able to get fuel there via shipment somehow, is the real bottleneck that, or is it the drivers? And if you get the drivers, are the roads passable to where they could get these goods where they need to go?
Hey, Carl, it's a great question. So first of all, here's what Crowley executives on the ground responsible for these logistics are telling me. They say the problem is not that there's no fuel. There's fuel. There's plenty of fuel recovery on the island. The problem is distribution. They've got security issues. They've got federal agents guarding the fuel distribution centers. They've got a requirement that there are 2 armed law enforcement officers accompanying every truck that goes out to deliver fuel to the gas stations. And then the issue with the drivers, right? You got to get the drivers from their homes to their place of employment. That takes gas, and it takes cell phone communications. And then you got to fill up the semi-truck so that they can come pick up these cargo containers and move them to the distribution center. One problem that they haven't even addressed yet is then how do you get the shipping containers back to Crowley, back on these ships, back to the United States so they can be refilled with more supplies. They're not even there yet. First, they got to make more room.
Contessa, can I ask a broader question about what you've seen so far, the devastation in Puerto Rico? The economic problems there have been well telegraphed. The president has been tweeting about them. 11th year of recession, $74 billion in debt. The list goes on and on. Is there a sense, because I know you have covered the recent hurricanes in Houston and in Florida, that if Puerto Rico didn't have such deep economic problems and maybe some representation in Washington, it would have been better prepared for a Category 4 hurricane?
The pro-statehood folks in Puerto Rico are making that exact same point, Sarah. They are saying this illustrates why we need to be considered a state and be on the same level of importance to the folks in Washington as Florida and Texas. There's a big sense of bitterness and resentment about that here on the ground. In San Juan itself, there are businesses that are operating on generator power, and they're serving food, and they've got refrigerators going and microwaves and all of that. But as soon as you leave this area, and we haven't been able to, because remember, fuel is in such short supply, even news media have to be very careful about how they expend those resources. When you get outside of the city center, the situation becomes dire very fast. Let me give you an example. People who live uphill need their water pumped. There's no fuel for those pumps. They have no running water. And the distribution supply chain that would be getting bottled water to them is broken. The bottled water is all sitting here at the...
Wow, that's a very dire situation. But they should leave politics out and get the help to the people as soon as possible. Let me know what you guys think in the comments below. And again, thank you so much for watching. Real Huffington Post, U.S. military on Puerto Rico. The problem is distribution, and here's why. It's picture perfect. Devastation. The hurricane came through the middle of the island, 100% refusing to distribute key supplies throughout Puerto Rico because they're seeking revenge over policies they view as hurtful to their industry set by the Puerto Rican governor. On Bombshell, Dems / Teamsters order Puerto Rican stand down to embarrass Trump. Only 20% of truck drivers showing up as essential aid backed up for miles to the humanitarian crisis. The Puerto Rico Teamsters Union, called Frente Amplio, a group of private contractors working for the federal government, are InfoWars. Democrats and Puerto Rican Teamsters have orchestrated a stand down of essential supply distribution throughout Puerto Rico in an effort to make President Trump appear ineffective at responding to